my question was, for example, when you talked about the polarization, depolarization of signals.
Just a second, okay?
Yeah.
I have a problem with my
Okay.
earphones. Okay, now I hear you. Yes.
Okay, when you have started to talk about the polarization of signals, about threshold, all of them, you've mentioned that the ions like sodium and potassium helps to move the signal. Yeah.
So they are the signal, yes.
Yeah. Ah, okay. So I was wondering, is the speed of signal is the speed of our like action movements depend on the concentration of these ions?
No, it's usually not dependent on the concentration of the ions. It actually depends on the myelinization of the axons. So you remember okay, so we have the axon and it is transmitting the signal. So the signal is transmitted through the depolarization. And we have also the myelinization. So these are the fat isolation of our axons. So the speed is actually relevant to the number of these patches or these beats, because it will jump from one side to another. Now, why it happens? Because the depolarization in one part, it creates the difference in the charge for this guy too, and spontaneously it starts depolarizing too, okay? And the signal kind of skips this distance. So if you take this distance, it is skipped. So this one is also, and finally these guys too. So this everything is skipped. That's why we have the increase in speed. So usually whenever we have the autonomous nervous system, they are poorly myelinated. So we have myelin that has bigger distance between them, okay? And the depolarization here doesn't jump. So if it jumps, it then gets through the whole distance here, okay? And then it jumps again. So that's why we have slower and faster transmission of the signal. So for example, in these parasympathetic or sympathetic signals, they are in centimeters per second. And in this guy, we might have hundreds of meters per second, because it's richly myelinated, okay? So we have a lot of myelin here. So, and is it clear?
Yes, okay, thank you.
So the concentration only gives us this difference between the two parts of the membrane. So we have the biomembrane here. And if we have enough charge outside and enough charge inside, it will let the cell to get depolarized. And so now we have this polarization, and depolarization means the loss of this difference of charge, okay? So the concentration only kind of influences the charge itself. So the question, what is the difference between sensory and motor neurons? The difference is quite obvious from the name of these neurons. So we have a neuron that is sensory, and it is for sensing something, okay? And we have the motor neuron, So this guy is motor neuron. So it is for moving or acting, okay? So if we have something, let's say from the outside of our body or inside, so something that we need to sense with the help of receptors. So this neuron, the sensory neuron, it has the special part called receptor. And this receptor receives some part of information. So usually for the skin, we could say about the temperature, about the pressure, pain, etc. So let's say this guy is sensing the temperature. So the temperature was 30 degrees, so it's outside. And then it dropped to 20. And this sensor, because it kind of received this information, it starts the depolarization. And the depolarization goes through the whole dendrite. So this is dendrite. And it gets to the cell, and this cell decides where to send this signal to. And let's say that it decides to send it further to the brain, saying that, okay, so it's quite cold now, and we need to get some warm clothes, etc. So it sends it in the direction of the brain. So the brain, okay, so this is a very bad representation of the brain. So it receives this information, processes it, and decides, okay, so it's now 20 degrees, and we really need to get some clothes. And then it sends the signal to our motor neuron to walk towards our place where we keep our clothes. Okay, so walk and get some warm stuff. And this guy, so because it receives the information, it receives it with the dendrites and sends this information to the muscle. So the muscle is the effector. So we have a muscle here, and it is the effector of this neuron. So it receives the information and acts. So effector is to act. So that's why we have sensory neuron, and then we have the motor neuron. And in between these two neurons, we have a lot of interneurons, some, because it's cognitive process, we also have the pyramidal neurons, etc. So is it clear, Madina?